Warning, this video contains team selection and captain choices which some viewers may find offensive.
Hey guys, and welcome back finally to FPL TV. Apologies for no videos before Game Week 17, but with the first deadline of the return being the day after Christmas, I chose to spend a bit more time with family and not think too much about FPL, especially after what was a very refreshing break from fantasy football during an unforgettable World Cup. I did, however, post my final team lineup over on Twitter and on the YouTube community page, so let's now see how my Game Week 17 unlimited transfer team got on. I'd say there wasn't too many surprises in my final draft, though one of the main talking points in my team would be deciding to go against the popular Arsenal assets over the short term, instead opting for Mason Mount over Martinelli in midfield. With me ranked at 1.2 million, in need of at least some differentials, and with league leaders Arsenal having some potentially difficult fixtures over the coming weeks, I figured now may be a good chance to bet against them. In the end, it didn't make too much difference, with Mount scoring 10 points and Martinelli bagging 8. However, with Mount now facing Nottingham Forest next, then followed by a double game week in 19, hopefully there he can help me make up some ground, especially with the Gunners away to Brighton up next, then followed by Newcastle and Tottenham. With Chelsea's kind fixtures and double game week 19 in mind, I opted to triple up on their assets, and on the whole it was a very decent start. 20 points from 3 and a 9-pointer from Kepa particularly pleasing. The disappointment here, of course, though, was Reece James getting injured, frustratingly just minutes before that clean sheet was locked in, and now looking to miss that double game week 19 as well, scuppering my plan slightly, which I'll come to later. Elsewhere in the side, Newcastle continued exactly how they left things 1 month ago, with a top display at both ends of the pitch and earning a convincing victory away to Leicester, the ever-present Trippier and Almiron both returning. I also opted to double up on United's attack with my unlimited transfers, as did many FPL managers, and that was simply due to their very enticing opening 3 fixtures, facing both Forest and Bournemouth at home in 2 of the opening 3 games. It was a superb display from Rashford, who really looks to have found his confidence at the moment, whilst Martial's single goal did soften the blow slightly of taking Mitrovic out of my team just a few days before the deadline. Certainly still some regret there to not have opted for Mitrovic, of course, but considering he was an injury concern, and the fact he's 1 booking away from a suspension, I do feel there was good logic in going with Martial for now. It's a move I may rectify for Mitrovic's double game week in 19, but that'll depend on how 18 goes first. Hopefully he doesn't go too crazy at home to Southampton, which sadly does look very plausible. If you're going to go big Mitro, then please get booked while doing so. Despite the great returns from the Chelsea, Newcastle and United assets, sadly I couldn't say the same for those from Man City and Liverpool, 2 teams that really had the chance to turn a good game week into a great one. Obviously, a big decision, perhaps the biggest for many managers during the World Cup break, was whether to opt for De Bruyne or Mo Salah as their second premium. And after 1 game week, those who opted for the Belgian are now 10 points down in the deal. The decision to opt for Cancelo at his premium price of 7+ million also started poorly, with him starting from the bench. With double game weeks on the way for Man City, I do plan to keep the faith for the time being, and there's no doubting that De Bruyne was superb in that fixture against Leeds. The performance was there, but sadly not the FPL returns to go with it. The machine Erling Haaland did of course bag 2 goals as my captain in that fixture, but as is the case every game week, he's the City player now that's points are basically redundant. He was near 200% effective ownership, which basically means his points don't help my cause at all, and it was instead returns from both De Bruyne and Cancelo that my team really needed. Whilst Mo Salah produced double figures, sadly Darwin Núñez blanked in that fixture away to Villa. I was keen to include Núñez in my squad due to his outstanding underlying and expected data, and from one perspective you could say it was the correct conclusion to own him, considering in that game against Villa he racked up another monstrous 4 big chances. From the other perspective though, what's not accounted for in this data is his erratic and poor finishing, which he'll have to improve on if he is to be a good asset at this price. No plans from me to sell Núñez just yet, and he'll definitely get the Leicester game at home up next, though he could be another route to Mitrovic in game week 19 depending on how 18 plays out. So overall, a score of 91 for the first game week of the Premier League return. A decent game week, but one that could have been so much better had De Bruyne delivered in that final fixture. Considering I started the game week at 1.2 million though, due to a very poor game week 16 before the World Cup break, on the whole it's a positive restart, with a green arrow and a rise of 200,000 places. I didn't quite get back into the top 1 million, but it does move me just outside of it. Hopefully I can get back in there for game week 18. So let's move on now and discuss the upcoming game week. Also, if you are enjoying this video, then please do consider leaving a like and most importantly getting subscribed to FPL TV. The content will now return as per usual on the channel, so I'd very much appreciate any support that you can give. Some of the inclusions on my Game Week 17 squad that may have raised some eyebrows were those that were kept on the bench last week, with the likes of Leno, Perraud and Konsa all included. The reason for this is that I was looking at a potential Game Week 19 bench boost, where both Fulham and Chelsea have a double game week. Leno and Andreas will both play twice that week, and I left the third Fulham spot open for Mitrovic, whilst before the Reece James injury I was also tripled up on Chelsea as well. As for Perraud and Konsa, well, I basically had 8.8 million to spend on two budget defenders, and in Game Week 19, Southampton are at home to Forest, whilst Villa are at home to Wolves. That's two home fixtures against fairly low-scoring opposition. Perraud's attacking numbers also looked very promising for a budget defender, so he seemed a decent bench boost option at home to Forest in Game Week 19. Of course, my perspective on that has now changed slightly, with Southampton looking very poor in Game Week 17 just gone, Perraud inevitably scoring an own goal and then getting hooked on 53 minutes. Reece James also got injured last week, so just like that, the bench boost plan in Game Week 19 isn't looking quite so good. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Game Week 19 was going to be the optimal time to use the bench boost. However, it's a chip that I've never had much luck with personally in the past, and to be honest, I was looking for a decent time to simply get it out of the way. In past seasons, I've always wildcarded into a bench boost team, and then I'm stuck for an eternity with lots of value spread and spent on my bench. So this season, considering we had unlimited transfers over Christmas, my idea was to use the bench boost now soon after, with my wildcard still in hand, so I can then notably wildcard out of a bench boost team instead of wildcarding into one, and that was the key consideration in my thinking. Due to James getting injured and Perraud's early substitution, I'm now undecided on whether I will stick with this bench boost plan or not, but that's something I still have another game week to mull over. We're also still waiting for more information about a potential double game week in 21, so I was very open to the plan of bench boosting in 19 and then wildcarding in 21 to attack all those double fixtures, and then subsequently never having to worry about spreading funds on my bench again this season. So with that all explained, let's see how the side now currently lines up, with no transfers made yet. Overall, very happy with the team lineup heading into Game Week 18, and despite disappointing returns from the likes of Cancelo, De Bruyne and Darwin last week, still very optimistic about their chances for this one. Leicester come off the back of a 3-0 drubbing at home to Newcastle last time out, so with a trip to Anfield up next, a lot more chances for Darwin could be on the cards here, so let's hope he can take some this time. Cancelo, meanwhile, should hopefully be in line for a start at home to Everton, a game in which the chances of a clean sheet do look fairly promising. I have to say though, that Man City youngster Rico Lewis was exceptional in their win against Leeds the other day, so that could be a slight threat to Cancelo's minutes longer term, something I'll be keeping in mind. The plan initially for Game Week 18 was to always roll the free transfer this week, take 2 transfers into 19 and look at a move for Mitrovic depending on his yellow card situation, whilst also reassessing the bench boost chip for that week. However, the James injury has put a dent into those plans now, and if I am to still roll the free transfer this week, I will be left with a somewhat weak link in the side, with Perraud away to Fulham coming in from my bench to replace James. As mentioned, I very much liked Perraud's attacking numbers this season, where not only has he bagged 2 goals and 2 assists already, but he's also had 20 shots on goal this season, notably the highest amongst all defenders. However, given their opening performance against Brighton, the fact he was subbed early, and the fact they're away to an impressive Fulham this week, well, he's not an option that fills me with much confidence. Their goalkeeper Bazunu has also looked less than convincing, and simply put, I fully expect Fulham to score this week. As for the captaincy in Game Week 18, well, plenty of good options within my squad I think, but it's predictably on Haaland, and honestly, I've not even considered changing it. There will likely be some time and place to go against the pack, but for me, Game Week 18 won't be the time to do it. If Mo Salah were in my squad, then I'd strongly consider him at home to Leicester, especially considering how the Foxes performed a few days back and given their long list of injuries at the moment. Though with no Mo Salah in my squad, the Haaland captaincy is even more straightforward. As for the bench this week, well, Andreas at home to Southampton certainly a tempting option to put in the starting 11. He's been a consistent performer all season really, and was very unlucky not to return against Palace last time out, hitting the post. Sadly, there's no easy way for me to start him in my squad this week, so it's likely he'll have to remain benched. The only player I'd consider starting him over is Martial. I think if I were to replace Reece James this week, then I'd say simply moving him to another Chelsea defender such as Cucurella or Thiago Silva could be the option. Cucurella the player that I prefer, but Thiago arguably offering the more guarantee on minutes. Granted, I'm not fully convinced on either of them to be honest, but they do boast that double game week in 19 and would support my plan to potentially bench boost that week. Luke Shaw of United is another alternative who's arguably more nailed for his starting place, and in Game Week 19 notably has a home fixture against Bournemouth, so he too supports that bench boost plan quite well. So that's everything discussed regarding my team for Game Week 18. Seeing as though I am undecided on whether or not to carry out this original bench boost plan in Game Week 19 now, I think the best move for me is to probably remain flexible and carry the free transfer over, even despite having to start Perraud to do so. Cucurella likely my favoured option if I am to make a transfer of Reece James, so that's what I'll be weighing up now before the deadline. Good luck to you all for Game Week 18, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all in a few days.